Hey guys, my name is Ethan, this is Carberra, and welcome to the series where I teach you how to build a game in Python. Today we are just doing some base classes, so we're not really doing anything visual or anything like that. We're going to be creating some very important base classes for our scenes and our sprites. So we're going to be using scenes to try and containerize certain things. So we're going to be loading the sprites that we need, we're going to be placing things, we're going to be doing all the different functionality and event handling in these scenes. And of course the sprites, we're going to be loading the image and controlling the sprite's behavior in there. So these base classes are really important because they set a template for what we need, and it also allows us to share the functionality between different sprites as well. Of course, if you find the video helpful at any point, then consider liking to let me know, and subscribing so you don't miss out on future videos in the series. But yeah, with that out of the way, let's get into it. And we're back in our init.py file. We need to add some new files to this. We're going to be creating some new files today, but I'm just going to be adding it to this now so we don't forget later. So from .sprites import just everything, and from .scenes import everything. Now I know in the last video we changed the events to not use wildcard imports because they are genuinely bad practice. However, inside libraries where you know what's going on and stuff is easy, they are used a lot. They do very much have their uses, and just doing it like this means you don't have to come back to the init every single time you add like a new sprite or a new scene or anything like that. So it just makes it easier overall. Note how this order does matter, at least to an extent. So I think the scenes and the sprites need to be before the client, and so does the window. I'm not sure about the rest of it. But the client does need to be last, I'm pretty sure. And I think the window needs to be first, if I remember correctly. But I might not be, so do correct me if I'm wrong on that. But yeah, we are going to be creating some new files. So I guess I'll start with the scene. Since we're going to be working with scenes before we work with sprites. So a scene is sort of like an environment in and of itself. It's kind of like a container for what we're going to be doing. So we're going to be loading specific sprites into specific scenes, and we're going to be running specific actions. And every scene is going to operate slightly differently, and having them as separate objects means that we don't have to have if statements all over the place. So we can just kind of, load an object up, set it as the active scene, and then we can just call, scene.update, and it will do its own updating rather than having, if scene equals an end string or whatever. If you use the Discord bots, I suppose scenes are sort of like cogs or extensions or plugins, whatever you want to call them, in a way. It's quite a loose comparison, but so this is one we're actually going to be using our abstract based classes on, so we need to import ABC. Essentially, an ABC is very much like a standards class, except it's sort of more like a template. So if I just bring the plan over for a second, actually, I think this is unprecedented, but if I just bring this over so you can see, we have this handle events, we have this update, and we have this draw, and these both have not implemented errors. This basically means that, every class that inherits from a scene has to have, these methods as part of it, and every it has to have the handle events one as well. We just return the events here because it's easy enough to do. It essentially just changes the behavior of the class ever so slightly, so it's a bit more strict about what you actually put in it, because we are going to need to make sure that the update and the draw methods are there, because we are going to need them at all times. So having them as an ABC just kind of works. Plus it gives me the option to show off ABCs, even though it's not especially useful in this instance. But, I've been wanting to show off ABCs ever since I learned them. So shut up, it gives me an opportunity. And it gives you an opportunity to learn about them as well. I'm just pointing judgically in the microphone. Anyways, class scene meta class equals ABC. That's an equal sign. That's definitely an equal sign. ABC.abc meta. You can just pass in something else, but I just got a meta class for it. I think it looks a bit nicer. And then we have our slots again for our scene. And then we have client, so we kind of have to pass the client through. It's a bit annoying, but we do. We have a separate one for window just to make the references a bit easier. We have frames, and then we have timer. So this allows us to actually, calculate the frames per second that we're running at. Now, and I do this in the scene. Having them in the main game just doesn't really work. You get some really weird numbers, but having them in a scene just make sure, when a scene loads, that's when the timer starts, and they're not like, weirdly offset or incorrect by any weird factors. So it just makes it a little bit nicer to calculate it scene by scene. You know, plus because it's a live readout, it doesn't matter. So we have self, and then we pass client in, and then we do self.client equals client, self.window equals window, self.frames equals 0, and self.timer equals 0. As you saw in the plan, we're going to do a property. This is how we're going to calculate our FPS. So, you know, every time we call FPS, we do the calculations. Then it just means that we don't have to do them later. So if not self.timer return 0, this just avoids 0 division errors, because every now and then you'll do the calculation before the timer has even incremented anything. Another option for that is just to set it as 0.01, but that makes it inconsistent. So, you know, if the timer is nothing, then the FPS is nothing, so we can just do that. And that also saves us having to do a try except, which is in the original plan. But otherwise, we do self.frames over self.timer. You know, number of frames over number of seconds will give you the frames per second. Fairly explanatory. Or fairly self-explanatory, I should say. So we're going to have def handle events, and we're going to have self and events. And this is kind of the scene-wide event handler. So this is what I was saying before, where we're not going to handle all our events in the main client, because most of them are actually going to be handled in a scene, because every scene is going to have different events it's listening for. And then we do self.update. You can tell I've thought a lot about how to make this all work. It's still not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but you know, you can. You know, it's something to build off. Like, if you're really serious about making a game with Pygame, then I think this would be a really good start. And you can build and improve on it. And then if you do get something like really good, then do let me know, because I'd be interested to see what you actually make out of this. We're going to have a not implemented error there. And that's all we need for now. We're not going to make any, you know, specific scenes in this video. We're just doing the base classes. As I said before, that's a bit of a boring one, but again, entirely necessary. That's the thing with this series. Every video is entirely necessary. So the sprites, this is our base sprite class. We don't actually need to import anything, so we can just go into just class sprite. We're not going to use Pygame's inbuilt sprites. You know, we're going to use our own collisions for this. If you want like a mesh collider, you probably do want to use the sprite. But seeing as we're doing, you know, square by square, game of Snake, you can do your own collisions and it's a lot faster that way. So again, we want slots, and we want, you know, surface, and then we want rect. And then, def init self surface x and y, and then we want self.surface equals surface. We do actually want to do that this time. And then we want self.rect is the surface dot get rect dot move x and then y. So a rect is an object in and of itself. It's a Pygame object, and it essentially just kind of defines the four corners of a rectangle and the width and the height and everything. It kind of gives you, you know, these different things. And it also gives you the option to move it as well to a specific position. So this will, you know, create the surface, set the rect to the top left corner, and, you know, we're just moving it into position with this last little bit here, and then that returns the actual rect, and we have it self-direct. Simple as pie. So we're just going to create a ton of properties here. Def w return self.rect.w. You never know, a sprite may change shape, so having this as a property is just nice to have. If you know it's not going to change shape, then maybe not doing its properties is ever so slightly faster. But I just feel like the uniformity in this case is just nice to have, or at least the guarantee that it's going to be there when you know, and it's going to work. So we have the width and the height. Now we're getting the x. It's pretty self-explanatory, this bit. Property, and then def y self. In a way, we're just kind of abstracting the attributes away from rect. There, we're putting them up a level, just because it makes sense. And then we're going to have one final one. This is going to be slightly more custom. Def position self, and then we're just going to do the same thing as we did really for the window, except for position rather than the size. We probably could do the size as well, actually. Yeah, sure, we'll do the size 2. Wasn't in plan, but whatever, it's fine. And then we have, you know, self.w is self.h. Oops, there we go. Actually type it. And there we go. There are our base classes. We're now kind of able to start creating scenes as we want them created, which is good. There is one more bit of boilerplate code that we do need to do before we can actually, create a full scene. We can create a scene all we want, but it's still going to be just black at the moment. So we're going to be starting with the menu in this series. So it's going to be a little longer before we get to the exciting stuff. It's only 2 more videos though before we start, drawing actually the snake and the apple and everything. But in the next video, we're going to be creating our text classes. So this will be used for the the UI, so the user interface, the bit that gets drawn onto the thing. We have the reactive menu, that's all text as well. And then after that, we'll be making the main menu. That'll just take a video. All that. So just one more bit of boilerplate to go, and then we can actually start creating the game itself. Not that we haven't been already, I suppose. If you've got any questions, feel free to leave a comment below, or you can join the Discord server using the link in the description. But yeah, with that, I'd like to say a huge thank you to my patrons who are on screen now. £1 a month, you could be on this screen as well. And I will see you next time, where, as I said, we will, go over creating UI elements and specifically text in this case. So I'll see you for that.